Oh no!
Merch.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I like that.
It's real. I officially have my first piece of merch.
Awesome.
That courtesy of my brother, Alex. Thank you so much, Alex. For all of you listeners, I'm holding up a t-shirt that my brother had printed for me for the holidays that has our logo on it, and I just couldn't be more happy about it. Welcome to Worse Than the Borg, the Star Trek podcast for everyone. Each week, we unpack new episodes of Star Trek with Star Trek fans, new and old. We also showcase and raise funds for causes near and dear to us in the name of solidarity, reconciliation, and justice. I am Captain Shane Holland. I am here with my number one, Ron Sly. What's up, Ron?
Hello, Captain.
Merry Christmas. And
Merry Christmas.
Chief Engineer Ravi Joshi. What's up, Ravi?
Hi, Shane. How are you?
I'm great. Happy holidays, Ravi.
Happy holidays to everyone.
And we are here to talk about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm so excited to welcome back this week's returning ambassador, Jia Qing. Hey, Jia Qing!
How's it going? Thanks so
Awesome.
much
Thank
for
you
having me back.
so much for coming. We are so excited to have you back. And collectively, we are worse than the Borg. Before we start, Ron, would you lead us off with our commitment to reconciliation?
Yes, Captain. This mission log is being recorded on Treaty 13 land, and the participants are committed to reconciliation here on Earth. We believe the United Federation of Planets would fully support the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. All tuned-in Terrans are encouraged to participate in the direct action discussed later in this log.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. Well, what a week. How did everyone enjoy their holiday break? I don't know. I celebrate Christmas and I got spoiled like I usually do because I'm a child and everyone knows to buy me presents that are related to Star Trek and James Bond. Jia Qing, what have you been doing over the past couple weeks?
It's been pretty quiet over here. Lockdown times. Watching
course.
a lot of Star Trek.
We approve.
Yeah. So that's been pretty
Lower
great.
Decks, great. We love.
Watching Lower Decks, and as always, sort of cycling through Deep Space Nine. Because at this
Oh,
point,
yeah.
I feel like it's almost like a divination tool. Like, what mood am I in? Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Pretty good. Hanging out with my cat a lot. Yeah.
nice.
Very nice. Ronnie, how about you?
Yeah, we did a physically distanced fire barbecue with Alex's family this past week, which was really nice. And we're also, you know what? I'm actually going to send this article to you. I've been sending it to everybody in my life. The New York Times had an article about how Scandinavians get through the winter because they have a relatively low rate of seasonal affective disorder, whereas here we struggle a lot.
Yeah, we do.
And basically it's, be happy about it and get outside, bundle up, plan ahead, like go outside. So Alex and I have actually been making mulled wine, sorrel, and going out and sitting on our balcony and just like being outside, bundled up and like enjoying the fresh air. So I'm going to share the article with everybody, and I highly recommend it because it's been fun.
Please do. We'll link it in the show notes as well, I think. That's so funny that you mentioned that. On Christmas night, a bunch of our friends got together outside. It was basically a snowstorm, the first and probably only snowstorm we'll have seen in 2020. And we, bundled up, brought some mulled wine, and just went around looking at like people's Christmas decorations on their lawns and their Christmas lights. It was so great to just like be outside because it's really the only thing we can do. So yeah,
Exactly
you're right.
it.
Take advantage of it, enjoy it, find ways to enjoy it at least. Ravi, how about you? What have your past couple weeks looked like?
More of the same. Just to get fresh air and vitamin D are two of the things that help me through the winter. And I recently lapsed in my vitamin D and then took it, and all of a sudden it changed my outlook on life quite a bit. As a Christmas skeptic myself, I do celebrate the season of Yule. And I have to say, there's nothing more enchanting, objectively enchanting, than Christmas lights outside.
Right.
And it's something that really always warms me up every time it happens when everybody turns on their Christmas lights. I'm all in favor. My partner and I have been spending time at my parents' house. We're in a bubble. This is the only bubble we've had for most of the pandemic. So it's exactly where we work from home from their house, and we're spending our holidays largely here with my sister as well. So we've got a nice little unit, and we have 2 dogs to keep us entertained. So we actually haven't been watching a ton of TV, except for QI,
Good.
which we often put on and nap to. And
Yeah.
there was, by the
a
way,
man
there is
who's
a
coming from my heart. I love
oh
it.
my,
QI.
there is a Star Trek themed QI episode on YouTube if you want to look it up. Perfect.
Is it from this season, like S?
It's from a couple of
that's-
seasons ago.
What
Yeah,
letter are they on?
and of course
Oh my
Shane's
gosh.
seen it. Of course Shane's seen it.
Robbie. Yeah. Yes, it's from a few seasons ago. I'll find it. We'll link that in the show notes too. Why
Perhaps
not?
we will do a very special episode on the QI.
Sure. So I mean, that's an awesome update. Thank you, everyone. I don't have a ton of Star Trek news. I showed my first Star Trek related gift, but I did get a second Star Trek related gift, and that would be my new captain's log, which
Ooh.
I have already used to take copious amounts of notes for this week's episode in very tiny.
Wow. I love that so much.
Thank you, babe.
Do you have one, Ravi?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting that James Doohan's Scotty's ashes were taken aboard the ISS, and I think this is like breaking news, as in it happened today, or the news is out today. So
I
Scotty,
think they smuggled him on there, eh? Like,
Yeah,
I
actually,
think so.
I have the story. I did catch this, and I'm so glad that you mentioned this. So his ashes were smuggled aboard the International Space Station back in 2008, but the story just came out this week. So this entrepreneur slash private astronaut slash obvious millionaire, eat the rich astronaut Richard Garriott, he took this laminated card that had James Doohan's picture and some ashes, and basically he tucked them underneath the floorboards of the space station in the
bravo,
module.
Amazing.
Yeah,
bravo.
really great. Apparently they'd twice been denied doing this by NASA. James Doohan's family had tried to get him into space. So they just found some rich guy who was willing to do it surreptitiously.
Do good.
very
Do
happy
good.
about this, and we'll talk about it this episode. We have a long history of bending the rules and getting around stuff in space, and we had some good examples of that in the episode.
Yeah, we did.
We're starting
this
now
is
in our time.
a podcast for North of the Borders. James Doohan, noted Vancouverite in origin, so very cool, and also just Scotty, like
Yeah.
Scotty, yeah.
Just Scotty.
Also this week, Jerry Ryan confirmed that Picard season 2 apparently is starting production on February 1st in California,
Meh.
which that's exciting for some of us. Definitely not for one of us.
I'm gonna take it like Ravi. You know you're gonna watch it. Like it's
We're gonna make you one.
Yeah.
Part of this show now.
I can rewatch DS9. That's cool.
I mean, always.
I did hear a rumor that Prodigy is starting to air in January. Has anybody else
January?
heard that? Yeah.
Oh.
January. Oh, wow. I have not heard this, and I am definitely going to look into this because
Now that's the Nickelodeon one, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
It's gonna be really interesting. I'm wondering.
with Janeway. I
That's
think it's
gonna
going to
be
be more like I think it's going to be. I mean, it's animated,
Mhm.
and it's definitely not going to be like Lower Decks. I wonder if it's even going to
Yeah.
be in the same animation style.
Oh, I don't think so. I think they're probably going to be doing their own thing. They're aiming it straight for kids. So, I mean, I think I will enjoy it just as a viewer of Star Trek.
Am I going to watch it? Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody caught today. We tweeted out from the Worse Than the Borg Twitter account. There's an account on there, Trek on the Tube, and they do an annual update of the Star Trek timeline. So like for anybody viewing, it starts with Enterprise and has the Kelvin timeline, the mirror universe, and all the various time jumps, as well as all the movies and series. It's a great spot. My partner, Ravi, this is going to be good for your partner. The people who are outside of the circle, it can get very confusing who's where when, because we've produced this all out of chronological order. Highly recommend going to have a look at it. And that's what got me thinking about Prodigy today, because we don't actually know where in the timeline it's going to be. And I'm hopeful that we have a holographic command hologram Janeway with the Prodigy all the way in current time with Discovery. I think that would be a lot of fun.
That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, that's
our episode description is just going to be a bunch of links today. This is going to be
Sorry.
fun. No, it's great. There's plenty of space. That's fine.
Well, after this episode discussion, be sure to help support this week's Direct Action. And if you're enjoying this podcast, like and subscribe, write us a really nice review, and most importantly, tell your Trekkie friends about us. Now we're going to take a very quick break for ourselves, and we'll be right back with our breakdown of the latest episode of Discovery. Welcome back. This week we're discussing Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 11, Su'Kal. It was directed by Norma Bailey and written by Anne Kofel Saunders, a all-female writing directing team. I love that. Ravi, do you want to tell us what happened in this episode?
Absolutely. Be warned, there are spoilers coming from this point on. The USS Discovery tracks down the source of the Federation distress signal and the origin of the burn to the highly radioactive Verubin Nebula. At the center is a planet made of dilithium where the Federation ship crashed land 125 years ago. Unable to penetrate the extremely hostile area surrounding the planet with the Discovery, Saru gives Ensign Tilly command while he, Burnham, and Culber transport to the ship on the surface to rescue the sole Kelpian life sign aboard. The Discovery shields are badly damaged from the radiation, so Tilly and the crew jump outside the nebula for repairs. The landing team has 4 hours before they succumb to the radiation poisoning. On the planet's surface, the landing team finds their appearances altered by the ship's holo programs, which have also been damaged by the planet's radiation. They discover the childlike Su'Kal, whose mother programmed the ship to care for him after the radiation death of everyone on board. Su'Kal has survived only because he was born into this environment. Meanwhile, the Discovery is ambushed by Osira, head of the Emerald Chain crime syndicate. Both ships cloak, but an energy surge disables both ships. Su'Kal is somehow causing an event similar to the burn due to the physiological changes caused by the planet. Tilly attempts to escape Osira, sending Book to recover the away team. Adira sneaks on board with a plan and some radiation medicine, and Saru and Hugh stay behind to help Su'Kal despite the increasing risk to their lives, while Adira joins them and Burnham returns with Book. Osira successfully captures the Discovery in a heart-palpitating moment, taking control of Stamets' mind and using it to jump along with her to the Federation HQ and stranding Book, Burnham, and the team behind. That is our episode recap. Back to you, Shane.
Wow, Ravi, great job, because that was all names and places. You deserve a shot on being in an episode one day for having to spout this much babble. Wow, like there are so many plot lines that they are trying to resolve. One might say too many. They might have bit off more than they could chew with this episode. But I mean, they made it a holodeck episode, which is the only way you could cram this much into 50 minutes of television.
Oh my gosh, and it was the most anxiety-inducing episode we've had yet, just as every plot got more and more precarious as we sped toward the end of the episode. I was losing my mind. It was a thrill. I'm gonna come out and say, like, this episode was, I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. And I mean, I'm a sucker for a holodeck episode, even the ones that are just like Janeway romancing a holoman.
Irish person. Yeah.
I love the creativity that they can do, and they got super creative with it. So I
creative.
Really appreciated it.
Yeah. And right out of the gate with this one too, like within the first 5 minutes, they're like, oh, Gray's back. And then they're like, boom, we've discovered that there's someone alive in the middle of the nebula. And then the credits. You're like, what?
What? Yeah.
Giorgio just left, right? Like you're still kind of
just had a two-parter.
Right? They're
and
still
it was like
at the memorial for Giorgio.
And that was like a smash cut. We were talking in the last episode with Kadeem about how Star Trek always has this scene where they're standing around in 10 forward or what have you, mourning the loss of a crewmate. And, you know, it's just kind of high cheese at this point. And I was so shocked and disarmed when we went straight back into that scene. It didn't seem like a scene that was worth spending. You know, we'd already just had 2 episodes of the storyline, so why are we resolving it here? And it was so, I feel like they could like launch us off into the next phase. Like you said, Judge, disorienting you with the return of Gray, and then you know straight into the techno babble of it all.
Ravi,
can I bring up 2 little pet peeves within this one is the Adira Gray thing. I find it's almost both are representative that they're kind of rushing and they're making choices in a very haphazard way. So like the Adira Gray thing is one, I'm sorry, a little bit boring. Like it's sort of just like it's a little like Well,
and then, sorry, you know why it's boring? Because we've seen it before. And Kadeem brought this up on the previous episode, which is we did Culber and Stamets with the exact same storyline, and they're saddling our queer representation once again with it.
And it's also just sort of like they don't know what they're trying to do at the moment. They're like, I'm gone, I'm back, I'm gone, I'm back. And there's no plot, you know, in between there to say why that's happening. It's just sort of, and I thought it was sort of rushed through and just kind of like not great writing. And the second one is when Saru is like, those radiation marks are not because of radiation, they're because she's pregnant. It's like,
why
didn't you say
information
last episode? You were there. You were not Lessa Calpian in the last episode.
Right?
Why couldn't you just say that?
Oh, right. Yes, of course. Pregnant women. Yes. Sorry, everyone. Yeah. It happens when our people get pregnant. Yeah.
And
I forgot.
Sort of, this is an almost flawless episode for my like I loved this episode. There's so many great things. Holodecks, people, you know, changing species, all that stuff. It's so great. And then these were just sort of like flying the like it was just a little bit like little letdowns at the beginning. But I will credit them that that's exactly the way I want to start most Star Trek episodes, is like action-packed setup, really good like exposition setting, building up momentum, and then executing it. But those 2 ones, I just had to get them. I'll be positive from now on for this episode, I promise. But those 2 ones were just like first 5 minutes. Oh, you did you? And I don't know why they were necessary. Like, why couldn't they just wait next episode to bring Gray back? And
I think they're doing exposition for the next episode. So we've had Adira. You know, I'm gonna jump to the end because I need to talk about it. We talked about our current real life astronauts smuggling the ashes of a Star Trek actor on board the International Space Station, and it's just like setting the precedent for, you know, professional people behaving badly. At the end of this episode, Adira goes over to Tignataro's character and says, I need you to help me break all the rules. And they don't even show any more of the interaction because you just know from that character, she's like, yeah, okay.
What rules?
Which also like going to the crusty old lesbian for some like, you know, advice on how to break the rules. Very like good mix, which I really enjoyed.
Just a reminder again that all queer people work in engineering at all
only
times.
Talk to each other.
Only talk to each other at all times.
Yeah. And like say,
super
like,
gay department.
Yeah. I have you ever worked in a very super gay department, like environment? I know I have. I love it.
Yeah. Haven't I do, and it's the best. Gotta say. Yeah.
You know that the lesbians will help you break the rules. Like, they don't care about it. And the thing with Adira, back to this conversation about how they're kind of just trapped in this Stamets and Tignataro's character world is, you know, again at the very beginning of this episode, Stamets goes like, "You're a part of that. Oh, all of those people who are mourning together, like you're a part of that." And I'm thinking like, are they? Like, have I seen them talk to literally anybody other than Culber and Stamets and Reno? We do get some interaction with Book at the very end, where he correctly genders Adira several times in a row. So, like, you know, regularly
flawlessly
in the flow that I didn't even notice it until the second rewatch.
Same.
You know, which I appreciated. We had a little bit there. Anyway, back to Ravi's point. we had a little bit of Adira exposition because next episode Jonathan Frakes is coming back, and we're gonna have
You were right.
a deeper
You were
exploration
so
of
right.
the-
I'm
Every
here for it. I'm here for it. I just want to say, from like a writing standpoint, there's good quality exposition, and then there's bad quality exposition.
and this was pretty
this was
bad
definitely the
quality.
latter. And we just need to call it and move on, right? Like
You might be
okay.
surprised. You might be surprised. They're doing exposition for an episode we have not yet seen. It's kind of big brain exposition.
I'm with Ravi.
What?
There's a lot like ham-fisted in this episode. I have so many. Look, I really enjoyed this episode, but there was a lot shoved down our throats.
So much.
Yeah.
I gotta say, with the Adira plot, and like we mentioned it, I think before we got fired up, the second season of Picard. One thing that I like love about Star Trek is that sometimes you just gotta have a little faith with it, right? Like there's some really dragging points in the first season of Voyager, TNG, DS9, right?
Oh, yeah.
Second season, we're like, oh god. And I'm so excited about Discovery becoming more of a long-term show, right? So like what's going to happen with Adira, like 2 seasons down the line or 1 season down the line, like how are we going to be looking back in these moments and building our idea of that character based on these like ham-fisted moments, right?
Well, I mean, so the last
love
time we
it.
talked to you, Jia Qing, was like I think maybe episode 2. So we were very new into this season, and a lot of our conversation has been about how it's kind of settling into the armchair of what a Star Trek show is. So let's have your like full review of what you've seen since the last time we spoke. Where are you in terms of like, is this becoming like a Star Trek show like we're used to, or is it something else?
Good call, Ronnie.
Okay, so I think, and I think one of you may have mentioned it when we were talking before, but I'm really seeing the show like it's new episodes in the Star Trek universe. Like we're finally getting like really new, fresh stories in the Star Trek universe, and they really could only do that by going this far into the future. Like they got that badass retrofit, and now they have this like weird ancient genius supercomputer that may or may not have made the ship sentient. So cool, right? Like there's so many neat ideas that are building up, but it's still Star Trek. So I am really happy to see that, like rather than like Picard, which I watch and love, and it's whatever, it's its own thing. It definitely doesn't hold up to some of the other ones, and that's just an extension of a story, right? You know, and so often in movies or other things are always like hearkening back to, and something that was exciting about DS9 was it was a totally new story. So I think it's really cool to be seeing Discovery like have completely new stories, you know, and we got to see the Guardian of Forever, right? Like it's all still there, but and I love that. And I gotta say, Book's character, like having masculine empaths, is so fucking cool.
Love it.
So cool, you know. And there's no question about whether or not he's a badass, but he's also this like refer to him as an empath. And I was watching it, and when that happened, what's that?
And he's got a cat.
He's got a cat.
Yeah. Like all empaths. Thank you.
Like all empaths. But remembering the last time we had a masculine empath on Star Trek, and
Voyager?
I could be wrong, but yeah, the guy in Voyager who was like severely mentally ill, he was a murderer, a sociopath, right? That was the last time we saw masculine empathy. Yeah, I think.
And in a lot of TNG episodes, masculine empaths were also doing horrible things to people.
Yeah, they're sexual predators, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you're so right to mention that. It's awesome to see Book be a great example of being this.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying his position on the ship just as like the outside the system person. You know, I think they're maybe a little slower to be utilizing him, and they some of that like, okay, we'll send him, transport him, like that was a little bit ham-fisted to me, which I think maybe they're just like figuring out like where he fits into the story. But you know, we got some great examples of the like heroism of this character, like what he's willing to put himself through. You know, the look on, let's, if we can, just like return to the weekly topic of the acting abilities of Sonequa Martin Green. When she realizes that he's in true danger the first time, and she gets this like 1,000-yard stare, you know, and then 30 minutes later, she's instructing this child with the like warmth and breadth of a like. I just
that was my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah.
Like for like Michael Burnham's amazing improv abilities to be like, oh, this
Yes.
thinks I'm a
this
program.
is what I need now. Yep.
and she goes into that like robotic face.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So
There's-
incredible.
There's also a scene where, well, there's the Tilly Michael scene, and then there's actually like 2 or 3, including Stamets and Culber. There's actually 2 or 3 scenes rapid fire, which is just showing all of the relationships back to back to back, and they were each perfect and immaculate little scenes that just enriched the sense of relationship between the characters, but also dialed up what was at stake. And this is what like sometimes gets forgotten is, you know, you have action-packed episode and then you've got a slow character development episode, and when the character development is interlaced into the scenes of action, it just brings so much more into it. So I was, from those scenes onward, I was dialed up and like into this episode, ignoring all of the writing mishaps at the beginning, and but also just they were so well done. Like the piece where Tilly, because you know Mary Wiseman can do no wrong apparently, like just the way she delivers into that scene where she's just like, what would I do without this there's so
In the
much
bedroom.
heart there. Yeah. It was so, I felt like that scene further just cemented what their relationship means to both of them. And also, and maybe we should get into this later, is I mean this view of leadership, right? That she's taking on leadership, and that she's cut from a very different cloth of Star Trek captains that we've seen in the past, and the whole series is about that, as a different view of leadership. And the way she's absorbing that was perfectly acted in those scenes. So heartening.
Agreed.
I loved her interaction with with Osira.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it was just amazing.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have a question on like how Osira knew anything about Tilly, that she was able to nail like all of the criticism I'm sure Tilly feels about herself, and like this is a fantastic shady speech. But the fact that like Tilly's like, are you kidding me? I it's like I always say about myself, I hate myself more than anyone else ever could. So don't even try to aim for me, because I've heard it all.
I really appreciated her coming into the confidence of the role without losing the essence of like who she is. You know, the stark differences between Michael and Tilly, but they're still sort of on the same level almost. You know, the scene Robbie mentions in the bedroom, like I think, have they gone back to the bedroom since the beginning where we find out they're roommates, and they've remained roommates this entire time. And you know, now we've come forward and we've got we waited forever to get the black alert from Michael Burnham, and then it was like this epic moment with a big pan and, you know, her like solid confidence. And then we have Tilly sitting in the chair, just, you know, black alert, like go do it. Like it's what, you know, totally on the level, and totally, you know, these 2 actors are just like at the top of their game and fulfilling exactly, I think, what they're being asked to do on screen.
Even the way she walks up to the chair, that was something that caught out to me, is like she's acting. I want to see Mary Wiseman in like a completely different role, just to see how she's able to do it, because right now it's just sort of blurring into one. Like I'm falsely assuming that this is what Mary Wiseman must be like out in the real world, which is probably completely untrue. But it's just because it's so natural the way she lives into this role, and the way, if you rewatch it, watch the way she walks up to the chair. It's obviously something she did, like a choice that she made, and it just fills out the entire character. She is top. This is not the last time we will see her in a prominent role in a series. She's a really, really talented actress.
Agreed. I'm sorry, we can't move past the chair. I have to mention I have to mention the chair's nipple.
The nipple. The nubbin.
The nubbin. The little nubbin.
The little thing that they rub when they're feeling anxious.
And you know, you just gotta give it a little flick when you, just to make sure it's there. You know, I just had to bring that up. We can move on. I actually
want to sit on that for a minute, because from like a writing nerd point, not so much the nipple part, but the what that nipple represents.
Centering
you know?
yourself and yeah.
And connecting yourselves to the legacy of captains that have come before you. I love when Star Trek moves a little bit into more spiritual things, because it's always so hard sciencey. But then when they incorporated a little bit of it and still say super sciencey, I think is really neat. And like in terms of this episode on the whole, the threads running through of like the legacy of the different captains leading to Tilly, this, you know, Kelpian boy with, you know, who's essentially a Marvel superhero living alone on this dilithium planet with all the holograms, learning about his legacy. And then Saru coming in, finally seeing an elder that old, because he's never seen an elder that old. Like there's this so many awesome themes of being connected to people before and after you.
Yes.
That is really cool. And like, just from a story point of view, like so wonderfully woven throughout the episode.
It was really well done, and I totally caught it on my second watch through. And for the first watch through, I'm like, what are they trying to say here? And then I realized that it was right in the middle of the episode when Michael is talking to Sukal as the program, where she's
training you on social interaction, Shane. Did you pick up a little lesson there?
Well, yes. First of all, yes, social interactions are difficult for me. But about the need to connect with your social units, which once again, so relevant this year and written before this year happened, and that are how our stories are our history, and just yes, exactly, the need to connect with our past, our present, and our future in order to tell those stories. It's so well done. It was right there, and I couldn't even see it because the actual action happening around all of it was so fast paced. But yeah, really well done. I loved that part of this episode the most. Ravi,
can we transition to the prerequisite Doug Jones fan club conversation?
This is a Doug Jones fan club podcast.
Doug
Jones
is amazing.
Oh my God.
Doug Jones is amazing.
If I can lead off the next hour of conversation about Doug Jones, I think he covers that the sentiment and the emotion of discovering more about your heritage so well. And it's so much part of this character. If this character wasn't already powerful enough, that he is stripped of his upbringing and his heritage and gets to reconnect with it through more and more meaningful parts. And his connection to the Elder was really great. And for the first time, because Ron reminds us of this, that he's doing it all through plastic. He wasn't doing it through plastic. We got to see the real Doug Jones.
When he started walking up, I had to pause it and just scream out loud before I actually got the reveal. Like you know it's coming. Culber's a Bajoran, Michael's a Trill, and Doug Jones, his feet are touching the ground. You know, like he's a human. We're gonna get to see him. And
genius.
And you know, he did such a great job of staying in character without, you know, something that I feel could feel like a crutch. You know, he maintained that Saru feel and vibe and gait the whole thing.
The whole way through.
And Ravi, just like touching back to how wonderfully he acted through the, you know, connecting with his past. We have such a straight-laced character. He's so by the book and you know, quite a serious individual. And when the elder asks if he would like to hear a lullaby for the first time in 3 seasons, we get a
and his childlike,
not a yes.
Yeah. You're like,
and it's just like such an excellent choice. And you know, we sing the praises of Doug Jones every week, but I'm so happy to just for him as an actor, you know, like he is always, he's not recognizable to anybody. You've seen him in a million things, but you would never know. And so for him to have sort of this silver screen debut of like, look at what I can do, and I can do it without all this stuff. Like I'm extra talented because I do, but I can do it without it too.
Like Doug Jones is such a master of physical theater. I'm sure that obviously these are choices that he does these parts that require him to wear prosthetics and CGI. But yeah, it was such a gift of Star Trek to give us, to get to see Doug Jones without any of it. So brilliant.
Yeah.
Really love
really-
Doug.
Have we, like, I know we get Spock like putting on toques and stuff, and we've had lots of surgical alterations, you know, like Dukat becoming Bajoran and things like that. But have we had an alien, like a Klingon or something with a lot of makeup, become human? Because I don't remember seeing that before. Maybe.
We've definitely had Michael Dorn in a couple of Deep Space Nine episodes, in like, you know, the past kind of episodes.
So he's a baseball player.
Yeah, and they're like, they aren't in the
With
in
a
the
big
story so
baseball
much. They're kind of like
He's a baseball player.
like the side stuff.
I don't want to steal this away because I love that this
Steal
would have
it
been
away.
the first time. But Ash in the entire first season was a Klingon to begin with.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Ash Tyler. How
Ash
quickly
Tyler.
We have forgotten.
There's a lot of humans becoming other species.
Yes.
There's a
Yes,
lot
this
of
is
that.
very true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Hey, if you're listening to this and you know better,
Yeah.
let us know on Twitter.
Well, the Ash Tyler one. Yeah. I wonder why that didn't stand out for me.
Because why did
those
Ash Tyler
seasons
stand out at all?
Oh.
You're not
Oh
making
yeah, I
any
just love
friends.
this season. I just love this season. We've
Way
moved
to
on.
bring it back,
Oh.
Ron. Okay, I'm gonna talk about my biggest disappointment this episode, which is we finally get the reveal of what caused the burn. And what is the cause? A child who can't deal with their emotional issues or their fear of abandonment, which, you know, is pretty understandable why they feel that way. But for that to have been the cause of the destruction of Starfleet and the galaxy as we know it.
Yeah.
In fairness, though, that is exactly how the original series would have written it. Like,
Yes.
cataclysmic event, manipulation, torture.
It was just a
abandonment.
godchild.
It
Yeah.
was just a godchild. Just a
Title
godchild
of the
all
ep.
along.
Yeah.
I think there's still more to be sussed out here. You know, the monster and the like weird kind of at the end, the monster goes up one staircase and Sukal goes up the other. I think they're setting up some more there.
Can I mention my theory?
Yeah.
I'm sure. I've already had a bunch of theories which have been proven wrong, so I'm sure I'm wrong. I am positive that it's going to be revealed that that is Dr. Isa, that is Sukal's mother. That's been somehow like transformed or is represented by this holo program malfunction. I have a feeling that's going to be the big reveal, and that's what's going to, I don't know, save them.
I mean, there's definitely something else going on. There's a lot of weird signals that they're sending. And you know, I like Culber being like, oh, his like body just kind of jived with dilithium in utero. And now
that's a very great Star Trek.
It's a very Star Trek explanation. But you know, like whether the monster is the mom or the child or his psyche, and we're seeing a projection. You know, there's probably going to be another layer to it, rather than just like a you know, disturbed child. You know, a mourning child is responsible for all of this. Although, you know, I think when we're talking about a series that's all about the familial connections, you know, you know, mourning those losses, if it was the death of his family unit that caused the burn, you know, I think that is kind of an appropriate level of fictional damage and destruction, right? Like we want to represent how something like that feels in real life. You know, in a fictional universe, it would be so destructive.
Yeah, all these connections lost. So like the connectability that you get from the warp cores and the lithium, like, is suddenly gone.
Yeah.
Because this kid has lost all these connections.
And now everybody feels it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading into it because I want to love it.
Love that. That makes it all make sense, Ron.
But we will see. We will see. Who knows?
We'll see.
We sometimes we're right on the money. Sometimes we were way off base. I don't know.
I think that's kind of what I like about this moment and this season, and this is that it isn't terribly predictable. There are some things that are a little like but on the whole, like I don't actually know what's going to happen. That's kind of good. Like they're not they've kind of struck that, and I'm reflecting on how much is being accomplished by like building out the world in a way that is unpredictable. Like I would have never foreseen the Romulans and Vulcans mishmashing together in this season, which was super thrilling. There's a lot that's sort of like, oh yeah, I mean, this is a new, back to your point, Jia Qing, I mean, they've been able to build this out in a way that is novel and tell new stories that I really appreciate. So I mean, it's fun to have theories, but like if I don't really have any strong leaning, because as long as they don't just like rubberneck so bad, like psych, that wasn't the. Turns out it was all a holodeck program is not the direction I want them to
They're
go.
still
So,
in the
like,
23rd century.
yeah, psych. Or not lead through that with good writing and good exposition, and help bring the audience through. But they can do whatever they want. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
We've talked a ton about this episode, and I'm just going to interrupt before we run out of time. We have a lot more to say, so let's take a very quick break. We'll return with our commitment to reconciliation. Welcome back. Every week, we pick a different organization that makes a positive impact in their community, and we make a donation to them as part of our commitment to reconciliation. Last week, we supported Across Boundaries. Ron, who are we focusing on today?
This week, we are spotlighting Street Health. They are an organization aiming to improve the health and well-being of people who are homeless, underhoused, and street involved through low barrier, accessible, and equitable services through community-based advocacy and education. You can join us in making a donation to them by going to streethealth.ca/donate. We encourage all of our tuned in Terran listeners to engage with this cause and do what you can in the fight for peace, justice, and equity.
That is awesome. They're doing great stuff out there. Thank you, Ron. Now, every week, of course, we get to ask our guest panelist what the Trek, and we get to ask Jia Qing a second time now. Jia Qing, what the Trek? What about this week's episode, or, Discovery or Star Trek, really had you scratching your head?
Well, what had me really scratching my head?
A lot of it.
I have two things written down. One was the have we seen the alien to human thing before, which we have determined that we have. And the other one is, why is everyone winking? I don't know. I don't know if you noticed it, but there was like a pretty great wink from Book to Michael Burnham, and then Michael Burnham passed that wink on to
Tilly, I believe. Yeah.
At one point. Yeah.
I missed that completely.
I missed the winks too.
I watch Book very closely. Very closely. Okay, so there was another moment that's really caught me in terms of like history of Star Trek. So right after they were like, it's about to cause a second burn, and then you see Discovery and the Viridian facing off. There's just a quick original series style horn sounds.
Oh,
like the tension.
I love music cues from old Trek when they sneak them in. They're so sneaky and good. They know what they're doing.
There were several. There was the regular like woo whistle, and they always get us with the like deep undertone. Dun, 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 like it happened
when
like
Tilly takes the chair.
Yes,
sure,
like you're like, oh my gosh, and it's doing what we're talking about them doing with the writing, which is link this stuff back to all of the stuff that's come before. We're not just, they're creating a great product that we're enjoying right now, but it is the product of so many artists' work over the decades.
Yeah,
so true. This really makes me want to shout out, like, sorry, Ravi. I just have to shout out the little ping of the view screen when it comes on is always there, and they just give you a little boo 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 boo. And then you forget about it. And also, anytime anyone hails, you get that pop up up. And I just
the new comm badge clicking is like, that's a new one, but a new take on an old sound. But like, man, when they do that touch, it brings me back to the Next Generation every time.
It's precisely how you want to do fan service, right? Like, it's there.
Yeah.
It obviously it's subtle, and that almost makes it more strong. But then you do not have to, it's not like a gatekeeping where you have to know this stuff to get into the series, right? It's just, it's it's there, and evidenced by, I think there's a lot of people, including Kadeem and my partner Kristen, who I believe will be a future guest on this show, who are completely new to Star Trek, and they're just finding this just as entertaining. And I think that's a real mark of a job well done.
I like another thing that I think that they're like leveling up what they're doing is that thinking about the comm badges again, they're actually resolving a what the Trek that you might have faced when you were watching TNG, which is what the hell are they doing every time? Like, are they talking to people? Do they need to touch it? Do they need to acknowledge? Like, it's not consistent or clear, because the the writers had a good idea, but it didn't really come to fruition. Now, every time they're touching that badge, it's to transport out or share information explicitly. We had the great scene where Stamets at the very beginning pulls up. They have that upfront view now of their stats, and you can see Adira over his shoulder react to what is on that screen. And then they kind of like walk away because they know it's like going to be a heavy moment. And he approaches Saru and flips it. So it's all coming still from his badge, so that Saru now gets the upfront screen and they can share the information. And that's all from the very clumsy 1980s, like little trick that they were doing to make it feel futuristic. So, it's a resolved what the Trek, I think.
Well done.
Can we just give a shout out to the production designers and the VFX artists? Because this has also been something we haven't talked about. It's just like Star Trek Discovery is an exceptionally well designed TV show from beginning to end, and I think that they don't just throw in visual effects as a way of resolving like unthought of. Everything seems to be very well thought of, and we've overlooked the prosthetics. That the fact that Doug Jones is capable of acting through the plastic is like, it's actually quite an incredible feat from start to finish, that they've made it so transformative and so immersive. Really well done. My favorite comment from one of our guests was, who is that actress or who is that character who looks like an electric car? And I thought that was hilarious. But it's also like, that's a feat that there's a resemblance there, even if it's a caricature. So full shout out to the VFX artists and the production designers and all the folks who work on that, because it's really, really well done.
Really beautiful, coherent design this season in particular. I just kind of want to show off something that I got as a gift now.
Always.
And there's no possible way you're going to be able to see it because it is way too bright in here. Give me one moment.
Oh, it's one of those things.
If you can see my lighting setup in the background, I was given these nano leaf panels. They're like these triangular panels, and they come in a bunch of different shapes, and you can get add-ons so that they can extend like around your entire place if you wanted to. And they have a whole bunch of different settings, and I specifically chose like the Discovery colors so that I've named it on my phone like bridge controls. If I touch them, they change colors. It is so futuristic and nerdy, and I just really had to show it off because it makes me happy. But it really reminds me of this whole production design of Discovery, how everything feels like that everything is lit in neon blue. Everything looks like you can touch it and interact with it. They've really just done an incredible job of making the Discovery feel alive, feel like a character, feel like a part of the world. So yeah, thank you for bringing it up. We don't talk about it enough because it's just so awesome. And how can you appreciate it when it's there all the time?
Yeah.
I am also production designing my life a little bit.
Yes.
For this people on screen, I've got a lit cube. It's like 2x2. It's green for a Borg cube, but it actually can do lots of different colors. And it was kind of a jokey gift from a family member, but I love it.
Love it.
You just like add a little bit of spice to anything. Sorry, Cha-Ching.
I know someone that used those as end tables, and they were great.
It is our patio table right now. When we can hang out in the parks again, we're definitely going to be bringing with us as our park table. It's just a little bit of fun.
We need a little brightness in these dark times.
It's true.
So before we like really wrap up, I feel like we've talked so much about this episode, but I'm sure we missed some things. I'm sure. Does anyone have anything?
We talked about how the ship got captured.
Oh,
yeah,
we always talk around the main plot point. We never actually.
Well, the plot is I don't know. There's like we've
What
already
is
said
the
there's
main
1,000 different plots happening in this episode. It's really hard to keep track of them. But that ending, how terrifying! Osira is like the dread pirate Osira. It turns out.
Yeah,
I thought they overdid it in, like, you know, you think that it's going to be a battle of equals, which is what has always happened in turns. Like I thought they executed this like, no, it's much worse than you think it's going to be thing, because it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And oh, they've thought about that. Oh, and they've got a mind control device. Oh, and they've got like it's just sort of like, oh, all my fears. Oh my god. Ah! It was really
mind
fun.
control tiara. I just want to.
Yeah, that's right.
So there also was like, I don't know if anybody else caught this, but you know, she's Osira is posturing to Tilly like, why are you still here, right? Like, are you waiting for something, like blah blah blah. And then we finally get to the moment where Tilly's ready to jump away. She says black alert, and that's the moment that the Osira's henchmen teleport into the chamber with Stamets and restrain him. So it's like they're waiting for that very moment because they know that he's going to be there and ready to go, and that's when they need to intercept. Then we have kind of a joke later on when she's sitting in the captain's chair and she's making fun of the writers are making fun of the Saru and Tilly plot line from earlier in the season where they're trying to discuss what it is that they say when they go
Manifest.
Yes, and she says, just get us out of here. But she knows what they say. It's black alert because she just like tactically responded to it. So I don't know if it's me just reading too much in and maybe the writers didn't catch it, but like it seems to me like there might be a mole or something if she has this information and she's she's still pretending that she does not have this information.
Oh no.
That is you have consistently churned out the hits with your perceptions about what's coming up, and that is possibly the most exciting one that's happened yet. That is incredible. Can I also bring back that we have unresolved plot points from previous episodes, namely, what does Saru say? Carry on.
It's gonna be the season wrap.
Right? Is that gonna be it?
It's gonna be like, bust it.
Bunch of Chewy.
Oh, I
we'll get
really
a
hope
Kelpian
bust
word.
it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice.
We had some good suggestions at the end of of that episode, and I can't remember what they were. Proceed, I think was Proceed.
Still my favorite.
Excelsior.
I guess I could have got this in when we were giving the VFX people so much credit, but one of my notes was just like I loved the Nebula episodes in previous, like especially Star Trek, like or Voyager. There's coffee in that nebula, you know. There's always a reason to go to these like oases, sort of these pools of resources that are also very dangerous. And I realized that, like, looking back on the CGI of the 90s and early 2000s, we're kind of looking at like just some chunky gradients with like other chunks of CGI.
Yes.
And when Book is navigating into the nebula, like you see what, you know,
there's shadows and levels.
I don't know what a real nebula would be like. Like, is it just like so big of a cloud that it's not, you would actually still kind of feel like you're in space? Or is it that dense? But like that dense feeling, you know, it was just so wonderful.
For most, just to insert a little bit of real science banter into this whole thing, what blows the mind is that most of the nebulas we see from like NASA and everything like that, if you were immersed in that, you probably wouldn't even know that you're in a nebula just because the particles are so far apart. Now that changes when you get close to like black holes and everything and accretion disks, but that's how big and vast space is that the actual individual particles are so vast and far apart from one another that you may not even know you're inside that nebula. It only is just because we're looking at it. How, like, so going back to the Star Wars, you know, the asteroid, the minefields, all those things, they are completely fictionalized. They're completely, and you know what, I'm here for it. It's great, but it's also just a
They're
reminder of
traveling
how
at warp
cool
speed,
space
the whole
is.
thing's
Like,
yeah.
yeah, real space
Yeah.
is fascinating. So fascinating. That's our next podcast, is just real space news.
Real space.
And it is so interesting.
Broadcasting to you directly from the center of the nebula.
From the center of my brain.
You probably have touched on it in other episodes, but I'm thinking back to what you asked me about my impression of the series, and I really like the idea of a Federation-wide resource scarcity as a plot device, and the way that it like shifts the Federation's power. And like you saw that when they were going to Navarre, like how the Federation needed to be like, the best tactic was being full of humility and being like, okay, well, you don't trust us, but I'll trust you, kind of thing. Like they don't have the power to leverage to just be like, science is the only way anymore. And you're really seeing how that, you know, their like rational science is really linked to power, which is so cool.
This was discussed on the pod with Elliot and Tom a couple episodes ago, and it's something that I hadn't really considered. But I think it's a really clever thing that they've done, because it makes it more relevant to what we're facing today, which is, you know, lithium scarcity, water scarcity, all like, you know, these actual sciencey things like lithium. We can run out of lithium. Like, you know, who would have thought that would be relevant to my day to day? But like, there's so much lithium on this desk in front of me that we wouldn't be able to
talk. Yeah.
And you know, the dilithium, like it's almost
2 times the amount of lithium.
It's almost a ham-fisted thing. So you know, I think like props to the writers for getting that in, and to Elliot and Tom, who neither of them were Star Trek viewers and picked that up right away. Which we love.
I've been binging on a lot of renewable energy news recently, and learning how the future of renewable energies is all about finding earth abundant minerals. And it's interesting because the sci-fi trope is to come up with, you know, more and more exotic rare minerals as plot devices, like unobtainium, which was so, I mean, they were just phoning it in. That was awful. Come on, really.
The omega particle.
But the reality is that
the
I really hope that that's fiction, and then we really do form a better Federation in the future. It's going to be like, no, we're using hydrogen. We just figured out how to use hydrogen. Our warp cores are using iron.
Hydrogen.
Like,
just iron. Honestly, why isn't it iron? It's so abundant.
This fascination, and I must steep into engineers in our current times. They think about, well, you have to find some rare use of, you know, some really heavy rare metal, and increasingly people are like, no, figure out how to make it out of cardboard if you can, please. Thank you. Like
the wind and the sun are free.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be a really interesting thing to see if they really dork out on like chemistry and technology and science fiction. Is like, we're going to start seeing lower and lower as in more and more simple elements used on the periodic table. I should totally map this. I should find a periodic table and just highlight where they think things are coming from, because dilithium has to be extraordinary. Well, it is extraordinarily rare.
Super rare.
Build it out of hydrogen. I'm waiting on my antimony based warp drive. There we go.
Antimony.
Maybe they'll find a way to make the spore drive, like put it in other ships. Like maybe it'll go there, which would change space travel, right? Because like even when they were thinking about even episodes in this season where we see them sort of hopping around, like we don't see them going to warp and having their, like, you know, sipping tea, looking back out at the stars. Really, they're just there, or they're at Starfleet headquarters. So it shifts space travel, whatever. I don't mean, you don't even need to be talking about how this is like
no
thing, but you know what I mean.
Thank you for tying it back to Star Trek, because it's so true. Like, I was going off. Ravi was just being a chief engineer and like getting all nerdy with the periodic table, and Jia Qing here trying to like keep us on track. No, it's so true. Like it's an endless resource that, if utilized properly, could solve a problem with resource scarcity.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the problem, as in real life, is that these things could potentially be used to harm us. So, what's that balance? Why? But I don't know if the Federation should keep Spore Drive completely secret at this point. If it's their only option, maybe more ships should have it, and just kind of limit how many people can have it.
I feel like if a siren knows about the Spore Drive, everybody knows about the Spore Drive now.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's an open secret.
Yeah, totally. Well, what about SB19? Like, we haven't found out what that project is yet, have we?
Oh, and
we
the
just know that
mysterious...
it's dangerous.
What about the song that everyone seemed to know?
The song, I believe, is the lullaby that the elder sang to Saru. Or maybe that Saru sang to them. And so it's resonating in this dilithium throughout the for 125 years. So
blowing my mind, Ronnie.
That's why we're getting out. I'm sure I read it on a Reddit thread. I can't take the credit, but that's why so many characters have it in their cultures, because it's that resonance is there. Anyway,
for 125 years. Okay.
I mean, on the whole, Discovery just is all about non-locality, right? They're like being able to be in the same place at 2 times, or things being like that. So I think it fits so well, that resonating crystal thing. A little woohoo, but
Oh no, I love it.
Resonating. Star Trek
failing the Mushroom Network, right?
Yeah. They're not afraid of getting a little woo-woo. Speaking of the Mushroom Network, we didn't really talk a lot about Stamets and Culber's moments. Ravi touched on it, but Culber finally getting this fleshed out character that we've been waiting for years to have. And
finding some purpose and
and that Talpal, I love him, and that embrace at the end where are
they gonna kill this guy again? They're gonna kill this guy again.
Actually, I had this thought during just before we went to break, and I wasn't sure I was going to bring it back up, but the only way they can truly flush this season for me is if they kill Tilly.
Don't even say that, Ron.
Because she's going to be on her own arc. If she lives, she's going to be on her own arc, because she got put in charge and she didn't self-destruct the ship, and she failed to keep everybody safe. So she's going to have to struggle to get that back, even though, it might have been out of her control, and people can say to her afterwards, you did your best, whatever. For her to feel the redemption, the stakes are going to be big. So I'm a little worried plot device wise for her. But
I more see it, we're going to get a Lieutenant Tilly arc out of this. For me, my biggest worry is that we're going to kill our gays for a 3rd time in the same series. So we shall see. We have talked so much about this episode. I am going to do what I always do and make sure we cut this before we hit the 1 hour, 20-minute mark. Once again, thank you so much to Jia Qing. Thank you again for being here. You always bring vibrancy to this discussion.
First return guest, by the way.
Woo!
And she will be back, I am sure of it.
Anytime. Especially in COVID time.
What else are you going to do?
All I'm doing is watching Star Trek.
Do you want to share your social media again with us, Jia Qing?
Sure.
No, you don't have to.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Well, you can follow us at Worse Than the Borg on Instagram and on Twitter at Worse Than Borg. You can email us at worsethantheborg@gmail.com. Please remember, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. As always, thank you so much for listening. We have been Worse Than the Borg. And you know what? I'm going to change it up. What you want is irrelevant. But resistance is truly never futile. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.